Well, thank you so much. Honestly, when I heard that you were going to be joining me, wow, like my heart was just in joy for even till now, because
Yeah.
I feel that I'm the type of person to I'm inspired by people that are walking the talk, and that have the courage to be their true selves. And I've read or listened to through Audible every one of your books, except for that one as the um,
Power of Emptiness.
I've even read that one. That was amazing.
How do you like that?
Oh, honestly,
Yeah.
wisdom, just oozing wisdom. I can't even put it into words. It wouldn't be sufficient. But it's a
Yeah.
book that I have to read. I've read it once,
Yeah.
and I have to read it many more times to get the full depth, the full grasp of it. Um, and I've read your stalking parallel perception. I don't know,
Mm.
3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And it's I'm a sponge for truth and for authenticity, and you just ooze that in your being and in your words. And so I'm just you know you are such a heart-based guy, and that's who I strive to be.
Yeah. We're all heart-based, basically, really. Um, the last book that I wrote, The Power of Emptiness, there was a lot of inquiries from my students to go further into the philosophy of love and pie. And I wrote this, or put this book together as a living mantra. So every time you go through it, it will awaken something else. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And and Misbah, actually, I got to give her so much thanks. She's such a lovely, lovely woman.
Mm-mm. I
And
agree.
yeah, just a lovely, lovely woman. So I got to give her thanks for helping this happen. This conversation between you and I. Such an
Yeah.
honor. Um, so I just want to say thank you for being on my podcast, Masters of the Matrix. I know I looked you up. I've watched all your interviews. You don't do a lot of interviews, so I find this an absolute honor and a blessing that you're spending this time with me.
Mm-mm.
So thank you for that,
Oh, you're absolutely welcome.
truly. And I know you're such a heart-based guy, so I wonder when, you were asked if you were going to be doing this, like your heart tells you, right? I don't know if you probably even respond to what the mind says, but your heart probably told you something.
Well, I just went with it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's
Absolutely.
it's such an honor. And so basically, I'd like to kind of get started, if that's okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We kind of are, but yeah, welcome to Masters of the Matrix, Lujan. And
Mhm.
I want to introduce Lujan, truly a very special guest. And I'm even a little bit nervous because like he's such an inspiration for me. Like I said, I've listened to or read all of his books, many more than once. He is a true master of the matrix, in my humble opinion, a master intuitive empath, practicing shaman, a guide and spiritual teacher, and a master of low band pi, which in English translation, I believe, is elegantly flourishing spirals.
Yeah, that's right.
So, which I'm going to sum this up really simplicity for people that are listening is to walk your path of life as your beautiful, loving self is
Mm-mm.
really all that matters. And that's coming from the power of emptiness.
Yeah.
So Loban Pai is an empathic and compassion-based spiritual teaching through meditative and movement techniques that
Mm-hmm.
have roots in Buddhism and the Tao. Um, and truly, you're a light warrior who walks the talk, truly living from his heart, moment by moment, and someone that inspires me truly and deeply to be my best. So I said, what an honor it is to have you.
Yeah.
So I've listened, like I said, I've listened to his books, starting with Stalking Parallel Perception back in 2017. And, it was just blowing my mind back then. And I just re-listened to it, I think 2 more times just in the past couple of months. And just in the past month, I've just ripped through your stuff, and on the way to work and on the way back, I'm just absorbing the stuff like a sponge, truly powerful, deep stuff. Um, and I also watched you in the documentary, The Cosmic Giggle,
Mm-hmm.
and you had some amazing insights there. So for anybody that wants some of more of his insights, go check that out. Um, and when I set up this meeting, there's many people that I had to we had a laugh that I said, um, like many people would like to meet stars and celebrities and people that are in movies, but like having Lujan here with me in this moment is truly like somebody meeting, in the normal world, like a Brad Pitt. So this is how high I just really regard him at such a high level that he's just.
No, I really believe you're very hard based yourself, and the equalizing factor is the tenderness between people,
Mm.
and to walk that. Mm,
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So the first thing I'd like to ask is I'm talk about inspiration. And for me, I'm someone that is like inspired by people conquering their challenges and living their authentic self in such a world that in moment by moment takes us away from our true self. So it's such a challenge. So you absolutely are one of my biggest inspirations, in how you just walk your talk and live your life, and just such a master. So my first question then would be, was there anyone that inspired you early on in your journey? Like, for just because the reason why I ask this is because, like for people out there that, I find people that are inspired or they want to reach for it to be their best because they know that it can be done. Is there anybody that inspired you?
Well,
Um,
I was inspired by my circumstances in terms of how it wasn't really correct from very early in my childhood. So it's no, I mean basically I was walking the path of what was presenting itself to me. Because in reality, what have we got other than what's in front of us? And communicating what was being noticed was of utmost importance to me. So it's I've been inspired by people who are loving and open, quite frankly. Um,
Beautiful.
and I do believe this is the only thing that really matters, and and inquiring after the truth and to bring balance to our world is basically my motivation, really. So it's a I don't know what to say other than that. I've had many timeline convergences, which give me slight glimpses into parallel timelines. But these are only glimpses. So the real path, as far as I can see for everybody, including myself, is what's really presented directly in front of us, and then dealing with the obstacle of that particular path to overcome that obstacle, so we don't get altered by the obstacle itself, yet witness exactly who we can be, because we don't get totally absorbed within the block that's in front of us.
Totally.
Yeah,
So in a way, it's these challenges that in each challenge that we have in our life is that presenting us with the chance to alchemize that situation to really bring out our best.
yeah, and I mean the techniques I put into the last book, as well as Whisperings of the Dragon, the fundamental premise behind how to proceed um, in terms of your beingness, knowing, and then not doing what you know, so that you can release other people from your belief systems by withdrawing back into yourself. So being knowing and not doing somebody else automatically promotes not doing yourself automatically. I mean, it sounds very simple, but it's extremely
Mm,
complex. And to come to terms with the feelings, and then transferring any form of feeling into an alternate frequency, which brings realization. And everybody knows in their life they they experience certain things, and then their body reflects on it, and then they have realizations. And low vampire is basically to dethrone the mind, and put the heart right in front of you and on your path, so that you can be revealed to this. Yeah,
absolutely.
and the reflection of the feeling that comes from that center. Because if we can imagine our mind is an electrical field, um, that if you can get it to sink into your magnetic field, because we're electromagnetic by nature, if we can get the mind to settle into the field of our magnetism. So if you imagine that the head is completely white light, and that white light is absorbing all of our energy and our realizations. And we can see, if we can sink into the body and then combine the magnetic field with the electrical impulse of the mind, then we start to function from our heart mind. And because it's meant to be empty and observe our circumstances. And the same with our lower dantian, which is in our lower abdomen. It's a regulatory center that doesn't have the process of thinking. And the same with the mind, shouldn't have the process of thinking. The centralized capacity of everybody's awakening always comes from heartfelt realizations. Yeah.
So it's a true centeredness, being centered in the heart.
Yeah.
But
Go
it's,
ahead.
I find it's like you said, it's easy to like just to see it, but to practice that on a daily and moment by moment basis is something else.
Yeah, to be in that center is not so easy in the beginning, because you've got to give up your mind process, and also your emotional connection to the mind. So in the Power of Emptiness, I've reduced a lot of the philosophies down into very, very simple concepts. So if you could imagine that your mind is a thief and your emotions are a ghost. So these two feed into each other, in terms of the mind will be promoted by the feeling, and the feeling will promote the mind. And so there's or emotion promotes the mind. So we've got to get into our feeling center, away from this bypassing element. So it's so if you could imagine that if you've read the Art of Stalking Parallel Perception, there are from this book right to the very end, all of these principles are outlined, but they're outlined in many different ways, so that there's a form of consistency within all the writings, to give people realizations to backtrack into alternate memories that reveal themselves without the process of the mind intervening. So it deals. My last book deals with how to um, function within the realm of recapitulation, but not in terms of the past moments being brought to the present moment. It's actually living absolutely your authentic moment right now, and not going into a misplaced memory to assert something from your past into the present moment. And the way that I proceed with this in terms of teaching is that misplaced memories are then fitted into being knowing and not doing. So when you don't do somebody else, you stop yourself from realizing what you primarily know as a situational awareness. So if you meet somebody and you have alarm bells going off, or you realize certain things, then you've got to let go of those realizations to allow them to be free of you. And regardless of whether we lock onto them or not let go of them, in terms of being knowing and then not doing them, the moment you decide that the the realization that you have is true, it's not false, and then you withdraw within yourself and take away that bias to allow that person to be free of you. So you take your impulse out of that particular person, and then you've got to stop yourself from thinking to yourself emotionally about that individual. So you stop the cycle of discussing uh, with yourself another individual, and then you go within yourself to discuss further without their presence, and then you pass it on to somebody else, and then you have this four-way collision factor where other people's mind and emotion will become involved in a circumstance which doesn't really exist for them. And we all want to be supportive of our friends and everything like this, but we support in a way which has got nothing to do with the reality of the particular moment. So that's how people bypass their personal power into something alternate, which is not really real. So say if something happened to me and I come home, I love my wife, so I put it to service. And if I can't put it to service, I put it to hard work. I, definitely do something constructive to alter those feelings inside of me, because they don't really belong within communication. They only belong to me in terms of how I deal with them, and by giving kindness and putting them to hard labor, then nobody knows what's really going on inside of me. So if you can imagine, you've got a feeling trapped within you, and this feeling is unresolved. So uh, if you're in your mind, this feeling will transport into an emotional eddy, which you can talk to. But if you settle into the feeling of what's occurred, then this will settle into your heart center. And if it's something that you have difficulty overcoming by being of service, or putting it to hard work, or hard labor, you put the thief to hard labor, the mind, and the mind is the thief, and the emotional ghost, you put them to hard work. If that doesn't work, then the next alternative is to take that feeling which arises, which is settled into your chest, let it arise into your capacity to speak, and then use the impetus of that particular feeling, which came from an emotional base from somebody else, to talk with. And nobody will realize that when you um, and everyone can experiment with this in terms of uh, giving it a certain validation for themselves. So when you speak from your chest, it vibrates, comes through your throat. You use the discordant feeling to discuss what's really in your moment, not what was in your past. And as you do this, then the feeling turns into a vibratory force, which then gets transported into true communication right in front of you. And then you don't transfer discord to another person, but you transform discord into understanding, by truly being there for somebody, and not hijacking the circumstance and the other person's life force into a drama. And we've all forgotten how to do this. And it's a very, very beautiful thing if everybody realizes the only thing that really matters is what do we do in this moment, because this moment's right in front of us. All the other moments have gone, and it's the only moment that exists right now. And then if you can operationally use particular techniques to overcome this, then you'll discover that maybe the emotional impetus from a past circumstance, whether it's a day or whether it's an hour old or anything like this, then can get transformed through traveling through your voice to somebody like this, and leaving behind the misplaced memory, because it is a misplaced memory. It gets stored and then distorts our perception, and we can get an overload of bias inside of our body, which becomes a resistant eddy that is hard to dissolve unless you realize that the power of your voice can transform it.
Yeah, when that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Thank you. That I first read about that in your Whisperings of the Dragon,
Yeah,
and literally, there's not many things that kind of like, I just feel things when I hear or read truth, they deeply resonate, and that literally blew my mind, because I'm somebody that is very very heart based, very sensitive. I would consider
mm,
myself an empath, and sometimes I'm feeling things that I don't know. And I've always just kind of really appreciated my feelings and my emotions, really.
mm,
But to now be able to discern that emotions, that emotional eddy that you talk about, is sort
yeah,
of like it can be very self-serving, and it can keep you in that, like you said, the thief and the ghost, and keep you in that perpetual loop.
yeah,
And you're going to be stuck, and you're going to be dragging other people down with that. So when I read that, it truly it blew my mind. It blew my heart. I'm like, wow, because this is something that, I really, in each moment, even in now, like I'm literally vibrating, because I try to keep my attention on my heart at all times,
mm,
so that I'm aware of my body, aware of my feelings, aware of my heart. Basically following in your path. And it's living in the world we live in, where we're distracted by all this technology, and
mm,
being time based and forward and back, and we're everywhere but here. It's such a challenge. But in the past, I used to resist that, and now I look at it like training. So
yeah,
when I have to interact with the world, I look at it like, this is my chance to be my best self. This is a chance for me to, plant seeds of truth in people, based off what my feelings. And so what you had spoken about feelings, there's so much like truthful and powerful information in these natural feelings that come out through your heart, and like you said, that go up into your voice vocal box to speak, your throat chakra, and
Yeah,
that's authentic, communication.
yeah. If you look at it, just to give it a little bit more depth to it, if you could just say that any emotional eddy that comes inside of you has the capacity to move inside of you quite in a quite a large way. So it can go to your left or right hand side. If you become centered within your center line, there are on the left and right hand side of your body. If you imagine there's a wave that climbs up your central channel, or corresponds to your central channel, um, there are okay. How do I explain this? You have internal hallways. Now, within these internal hallways, they've been disrupted because we've lost the capacity to be absolutely in our center line, and we've been trained to diverge from the center line and give it too much room to move. When we discover that the central line, when we can squeeze the center line, then there's energies which rise from the left and right hand side of the body up the torso and down the torso when you do certain types of movements, and this brings your center line it makes it kind of narrow, and when you realize that you're being pulled off to the left or to the right, then you can see that your process is leaned to one way or the other, and when you discover that this when you can squeeze this particular center line, you begin to realize how we've been taught how to fluctuate like flip flop inside of ourselves instead of being aligned in the center. And once we learn to flip flop, then we occupy these particular coiling channels. If you can imagine an S shape a dozen times, or just a waving motion going down the left and right hand side. Um, if we occupy this with resistant emotion, then we can't open up these particular channels because we've been socially conditioned not to realize them, because we're using them up with the internal resistances of the eddy of our bias. And once you become very focused, then these lines can become available and bring inspiration in terms of feeling. And these internal hallways, we're meant to be in contact with them to grow into our next level of consciousness, which is always step by step, never ending.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of blockages there. Do these left and right hallways, are they kind of corresponding to the masculine, feminine, and the
No,
positive,
not really.
negative? No.
Yeah, well, you could say, well, the left and right hand side could represent certain energies, yeah, for sure. But the thing is that that if you understand that the central channel is a clear, like a clear pipe, and light goes up this clear pipe, and then from your inguinal crease, which is on your hips, to your shoulder nest, there are certain movements that can be done to disrupt the left and right process of these energies that wind through the central channel. Now, you could say, here's where it gets a little bit. It takes away the notion of male and female, because if you go from your right inguinal crease and it crosses over to the left hand side and then crosses to the right, then there's an influx of winding energy which is united, so that you then discover that there's neither this nor that, or that or this, and then it begins to, when you realize this, that you begin to travel on these lines instead of the human program, or the socially engineered program, and you begin to realize things way beyond the condition that we've been trained to stay adhered to. Yeah,
Totally.
and yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah, and
And that's a question I kind of want to go into a little bit
yeah.
in a second, because I'm having some personal experiences with that, ever since, some things that I would like to talk about in a little bit as well. But um, before that, I for one have felt, having a lot of, fear of getting to know my true self, and I feel that there's been blockages, and I know that in your couple of your books, that there's these entities that I guess they're to teach us our power ultimately. So I had an experience as a child, and I
Mhm.
wonder if that was probably connected to taking away my true power. And ever since that day, um, I've been kind of like trying to, that's my, even my last name actually it translates to courage. So I know that's kind of an um, in the German language, it actually
Yeah,
does translate to courage. So I know that's an important part of my path, is to be courageous on
yeah.
this path. And I've been feeling, hesitant, and I don't know why or where it comes from, or if it's from these energies that are trying to stop us from being our true self, or if it's from other things. But you know, I wonder, did you have these little blockages in the past? Like,
Well,
did you ever experience fear on your path at all?
of course, everybody experiences everything there is to be experienced, and then you got to overcome them, or you've got to accommodate what you can't overcome. Um, as far as you read the Power of Emptiness. Now, this particular subject, I've dealt with this in terms of misplaced memories. Um, the donkeys. You remember that chapter?
I do, yeah.
So so I won't give away the little joke in there, but about the donkey's behavior.
Mhm.
But when you look at misplaced memories, and you assume to have a reflective consciousness in terms of being influenced. Now, there is uh, there is there is definitely um, a pre-program there in terms of the human edifice. So when you say to yourself that maybe something has done something to you, it's is have we just assumed uh, in terms of our condition to apply ourselves to the story of being overpowered? Because everything in the world has got to do with human attention. Other than human attention, we've got to deal with the world at large as a natural influx of information. Now, for sure, there are a lot of dangers in the world without man being there. But these are dangers that have uh, no what you call it. I've lost my words now. How about that? They've got there's no right or wrong. It's just the result of where you land, and you can either continue or you're stopped by the world at large. So so when you begin to realize that there is no real right or wrong, and the world does present exactly your life path to you in the way which gives you a result, and that result is determined by your understanding via our say human condition or our human programming. So when we look at the condition of by being absorbed in something, and then having some sort of demonic response inside of us in terms of reflection, then we get caught in the narrative in terms of the what will happen inside of our reflective mechanism of our memory of our mind, and then it's connected to our emotions. Now, when you look at this, it's easy to dislodge from the fear of any demonic forces. Now, you've got to you understand, you're empathically inclined. You'll realize that you'll meet individuals that don't have good intentions, and those good intentions are translated by vibration, by frequency inside of your body. Now, if you don't understand what's entered you in terms of the vibration, then your emotional predisposition in your mind will interpret it in comparison to your fear-based reality. Now, this is contradictory, because you'll have a fear-based reality, and you may have maybe confronted with an image or a feeling or nightmares like this, and you would fix something terrifying to it. But in reality, this may be a combination of our humanness collecting um, the the very very deep unloyal feelings from many people around us, that have been communally trained to be self-centered. And there's a certain fear-based feelings which come from the fact that we're disconnected, and then our consciousness will adhere something else to it in terms of our interpretive capacity of dreaming. Will go into that and say, well, uh, must be something really, really terrible going on. But in actuality, it's got a lot to do with our primal interaction with each other, and then being pre-programmed to believe there's something else doing something to us, which actually bypasses us from the human condition, where actually there are many things going on in the world, but it's got nothing to do with any demonic forces. It's got to do with human beings having no self-control. So being an empath, you would say, well, where am I going with this? Is it when you absorb a certain amount of information, you're consuming that feeling. So you're eating that feeling. So from a Catholic perspective, it's called a sin eater. So we all have this capacity to absorb people's feeling into the center of ourselves, and depending on the interpretive system of the human being, it will be translated or released in a way to allow us to get out of that feeling into a horror and give it an explanation. But it may have something to do with the collective force of everybody's attention, which has devised our consciousness to be held in a fear-based reality. So it's so if I meet somebody who's unbalanced, I'm very, very open on my heart center, and everything goes inside of me. And when it goes inside of me, it's a 24/7 thing for me when people come and see me. So that if I pull something from somebody's body, I don't purposely do it because I don't have the intentions to do that, because it's not the right thing to do. But I'm open, and I realize that if I'm open, there's a possibility for somebody to enter me to examine who's there, because that's our primary um, communication mode as human beings. But we've been given the belief system that uh, we our experiences are contingent on our bias. This is true, but our experiences are contingent on understanding. Can we really understand when somebody enters us? A lot of people say, "Well, that's my stuff I have to deal with," but they don't really realize that maybe they've really grabbed onto something that's real. But there's a belief system inside of themselves. Well, this can't be really possible. But it's our evolutionary process to open up in this way, so that we can actually walk into the doorways of consciousness and actually see what needs to be done next, in a state of perfection in terms of knowing exactly what to do. And we need to do this as a collective. Now, if we're not doing this as a collective, then what do we do as individuals? We absorb that information, and I'll take it from my perspective. What happens to me? It goes inside of my body, and I may wake up, and I've had this ever since in my childhood. Is I get night terrors, and I have a little warning system. I go, oh, like this, and when I'm releasing something, with somebody's put inside of my body, because that's what I do. And uh, and as my wife shakes me out of it, then the visual matrix of what's inside that particular vision represents the person's intention. And when I see it, okay, I could say, well, I could interpret this as being influenced by the prospect of that person's intention upon me. And then it's given a visual context, and the visual context is always quite frightening, because of the collective and the repetitive feeling of the person wants to crowd in my openness, and then I escape from that particular vibration, and leave those feelings there, which helps the other person get free of them. And I know this sounds crazy, but everybody does this. But the interpretative system of their internal workings have been so disjointed that we adhere to all of these strange, mysterious, in a lot of cases, fantasies about what's really going on. But it's really going on between our loved ones and our close associates. And if we realize that if we can be really clean with our partners, then the first thing we do is fix this, and then the world progressively becomes clearer, because each household must be cleared of this first, before we can actually move forward as a collective, because we've got a certain amount of collective consciousness going in a certain direction of fear, or a certain direction of ignorance in terms of what we've been taught. And and in a lot of cases, people can't get to the truth of where they've been caught because of the interpretive system, which is giving them a ways and means to explain what's going on, um, which in a lot of ways you've got to let go of what you believe so you can undo that belief system to come upon something new. And this is very difficult for people to come to terms with. I hope I'm not talking too much.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah,
This is all gold.
yeah,
Definitely resonate deeply. And maybe adding on to that, or as a side note, with a lot of how things are going in the past and how we've been entrained, I feel like, and this is something I talk about on my podcast um, to my listeners, is that we have to learn, know thyself, learn to love ourselves,
mm,
honoring ourselves, honoring our path, because some of us aren't taught that in our childhood,
mm,
and so maybe sometimes there's that self-perpetuating pattern that we don't deserve love. And so, like you said, to put it lightly, or in a less fancy way, but we're manifesting that in other relationships and
mm,
in our coincidences. So to heal us internally, to begin with us, is and you have to start within, essentially, right?
yeah,
To heal
yeah,
the world. And there's a lot of that out there, where people are trying to save the world without saving themselves first.
yeah. I mean, one of the things that I believe is very difficult to come to terms with, if somebody takes 10,000 steps, upon their 10,000 steps, if they're called back to someone who's only taken 500 steps, it's not that the person is diminished in comparison to 10,000 steps. You're reduced to that, and that's the challenge, and um, that is what we're meant to do, is to realize that somebody can't see you. And when somebody can't see you, then uh, you communicate on the level that they can comprehend. But you don't do that out of some sort of hierarchical ideology of being superior. It's just you realize you can't be seen. And if you realize you can't be seen, then it isolates you in a certain way, but brings you into a state of communion by realizing that there are limitations, and you work with those limitations with kindness. So you know, there'll be many occasions where if you meet somebody to listen to them, within the restrictive nature of their personality, is extremely enlightening in terms of giving up who you want to explain yourself to be to that particular person. You actually be exactly who you need to be for that individual, to free them from their bias, even if they don't realize that you're watching them. They can't see you seeing them. It's the matter that you don't add to them and their shortcomings. And this is a way to lead them to a place that is not a habitual, because eventually they will realize that after many years that you've been watching them very, very gently, until they realize that they're being observed, and your reaction is not to tell them what to do, but to actually be exactly who you are. And this leads people to their heart, really. And
Through
if
your
you
love.
can't, yeah, through love. And if you can't lead somebody, um, directly, then indirectly we have a responsibility not to react in a way which locks them in the prison of your mind. Because maybe they're locked in the prison of their own limitations. And this is kind of like a really sad thing in terms of us awakening. We're meant to to open up and awaken together through the trials and tribulations of being guardians of this particular planet. And
Mm.
everybody has, and I've got to reiterate this, is that it doesn't matter whether someone's taken 500 steps and someone's taken 10,000 steps. The matter is that the 500 steps are very valuable, because that person, if they don't see themselves as limited, and they don't have a strong bias, this is the most magical place for someone to be. So that's why the description of being your most gentle, loving self is more powerful than taking 10,000 steps. So if someone takes 10,000 steps, they have enormous amounts of information. If they can't be their beautiful, loving self, or truly who they're really meant to be, then those 10,000 steps are then tested by the 500 steps. Because if the person really stays centered within themselves and is comfortable with their reduction or who they really are, the magic of who they really are is extremely powerful. And it's only through kindness that you begin to grow on the path of where you land continually every single moment. Yeah,
You are where you're meant to be.
yeah, you're
It's,
where you're
it's,
meant to be.
it's not a competition. That's has to
Yes,
go against that training that we've been ingrained with.
yeah, and it's a very, very beautiful thing to actually see that. And
Mm.
and where the possibilities is truly allow everybody to be themselves within the limitation that is set forth by the obstacle of our worldwide circumstances, not the obstacle of individuality, differentiation of consciousness. So
Because each of
we
us has free will, right?
yeah, yeah,
And that's a delicate balance. Because if we, and I've been struggling with this was because, myself and my wife are on this path together, and sometimes, I can see my mind getting in the way, and I want her to discover more, but it's that art of allowing, and just like you said, magically and beautifully, where they are is that 500 steps is absolutely powerful and incredible, and a place to be where you're meant to be, and
yeah.
that loving and like you said, observing love is a powerful thing.
The everything that I put in the Power of Emptiness has to, apart from being the Mango Grove Master, I took on the persona of the Mango Grove Master, but every single thing I wrote in that book was personal experience, and also revealing separate timelines that I have a memory of. So, so when we look at this in terms of its simplicity, is that is it is that when you look at the chant, you remember that chapter, the chant?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The thing that we've got to come to terms with is that the power that we can obtain as a human being is not of relevance. It's the power that we've got is to deny ourselves the relevance of something like this, so that we don't get absorbed within it. Because the power doesn't mean anything, because it's testing you not to be absorbed within your own self identity. And when you don't be absorbed within your self identity, no matter what comes to you in terms of the powers that reveal themselves to you, then the whatever um, power that you've obtained reverses and then allows you to be uh, witness to the fact that you're being watched by something quite extraordinary. And a lot of people get caught in um, their production of who they think they are in comparison to what they're meant to realize. And no matter what you can do, it's who you are
Right.
that really matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the doing the internal inaction is very soft and very, very hard to reveal. And to
Delicate.
walk, yeah, delicate, and to walk on this particular path is all that we've got in terms of our progress. Really, this is all.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I think it was in that book or another book where you talk about, I am nothing. To become nothing is allowing yourself to be something.
yeah.
When the ego first hears that, it's like, what? No, I'm this. It attaches to these identities, and I wouldn't have been ready for that information even just a few years ago. But when I
Yeah.
heard that, I'm like, oh my gosh, powerful.
Okay, so when you look at that, you just say that if you empty yourself of your personality, as soon as you empty yourself of your personality, you're empty within. There'll be certain traits within your character which won't change, but in terms of the way that you look, the size of your bones, and everything like this, but if you give up the idea of yourself, you become nobody. But the most interesting thing about being nobody within is that you invite the perception of somebody else to commune inside of you, to be to for you to speak their reality on their behalf. So if we realize that it's not a matter of me communicating purposely what's going on with me, it's better to subdue this and then to allow the information of somebody else to come inside of you and speak on the behalf of what you're realizing internally. And it's a very, very subtle affair. And if you don't get in your own way, that's the prospect of being nobody reveals somebody else within you. And this is one of the points of our progression, which is not being realized by everybody individually, is that if they give up their self, not give up their sovereign right to be a human being and be safe, but to give up the idea of themselves, then the information from somebody else will flow through, and then you become softly guided by the subtleties of the reality around you, and then to begin to notice the things that are very, very difficult to actually realize. And this is what we're all heading towards in terms of communication without words, but communications with immediate relevant feelings, which actually turn into the communication of the person that you're with. So when we begin to progress into this, it'll be collective realizations of what needs to be done, and pinpointed on the community that we're in, so that we can progress. And it's we seem to be having trouble getting into this state of awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a little bit. Um, but there's some, way showers
Yes.
that are guiding us and inspiring us, showing us the way through the heart.
Yeah.
Um, hence this conversation. Um, so I know there's going to be a lot of listeners out there that are kind of that want your insight on, and I don't want to change, the flow too much, but it's something that I'm thinking about too.
Yeah.
With what's going on with the global manifestation right now, and the amount of fear that's been pushed down our throats, on the daily basis, with this, global manifestation. Is this like, and I know and I feel that everything is in divine harmony and everything's manifesting as it should. Um, so, like, how do you see what's happening now with this global manifestation and this pandemic?
Well,
Like,
it's an obstacle to the right of our perception to be not to be clueless, to actually stand up and realize something that needs to be seen. So basically, every situation, we've got two possibilities: the obstacle and overcoming the obstacle. So there's an enormous obstacle that's been pushed onto everybody's chest, and either people change towards the obstacle and support the obstacle because they want to be in sync with everybody else, or you realize that the obstacle uh, is meant to show you that you're capable of seeing through it. Yeah. So
absolutely.
this is basically what we've all got a challenge with, is whatever obstacle comes in front of your chest, that it's the divine discernment of the heart, then incrementally looks at that particular obstacle, and what do we become because of the obstacle. This is really the challenge: is the obstacle, is it going to change us into something that we're not meant to be, or are we meant to realize that the obstacle is challenging us to stand up to be the people that we're meant to be at the moment, not change into the obstacle because we can't deal with the challenge of the obstacle. Without being political, without being negative or anything like that, this is all that it is, really.
Hmm.
And to stand up within realization that as far as collective consciousness goes, it is really true that that enough people realize one thing, that one thing becomes a collective manifestation of many different variables in terms of people's consciousness, because we're such a unique species in terms of, yeah, how we are so good at manifesting, and we're the honest that we either become part of the obstacle or we become part of the solution because of the obstacle. So it is a very, very challenging time.
Incredibly, and
Yeah.
I'm feeling exactly what you're saying, because it's something that I'm just, my heart is just, I refuse to make a decision based out of fear.
Yeah.
I stand in my heart, and something just doesn't feel and sit right. And I not that I want to be political myself, but whether there's going to be people in a situation where they're going to be at work, and part of me wants to, they want to force this vaccine on people. Do you feel there's an agenda there based off fear? Is it safe to take,
Well,
or do you have to let your heart decide? Sorry to put you on a.
Well, no, no, no. It's I don't want anything in my body really that's I'm not sure what it is either. But the thing is that we've got to look at what we do with our. If we've got an internal dialogue or the process, it's got to be right thought. If we've got a feeling process, then it's got to be right feeling, and if we've got a physical process, it's got to be right action. So we look at these particular elements within ourselves, and if we live by this, then we can tell whether something's restrictive or not right. So it's up to every individual to actually stand up for what they believe in and not be forced to be anything other than what they believe they should be doing. You know.
And I think to add for me to that is, and you do speak about this in one of your books about people messing with scientists messing with nature and GMO products, and
Yeah.
there's an intention behind there. And I love putting products that nature makes into my body because I know the
Yeah.
intention in there is pure.
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's been there for generations. It's been there for thousands of years.
and it's based out of love.
Yeah. and
Mother Earth
and out of
gives
out of
freely.
necessity as well, out of necessity.
Mm,
But when we look at I mean, yeah, we all rely on each other for perspective and point of view. But if we rely on everybody on any form of information that's not quite correct, then we're taken off our path very, very subtly. And you can take millions of people subtly off their path only by a certain degree, and that's enough to realign everybody in a way which has got nothing to do with what we're meant to achieve as sentient beings on the planet. Because we're here for a reason. We're not here to be harvested. We're not here to be used to make money. We're meant to be here for other reasons, and we're caught in a very, very strange position at the moment because we're dependent on what we've built. And to change what we've built, we have to be very, very conscious to continue with what we've got and to incrementally change it into something quite natural and quite harmonious for ourselves. But it's we're confronted by a big challenge at the moment when it comes to this.
and you feel
And
it too, Luhan?
what's that?
Do you feel the challenge, like the challenge,
Oh,
and
of
sort of,
course,
yeah,
of course, of
yeah.
course. There's a certain amount of concern inside of my body as well.
Mm.
Um, it's but the only thing that I can say for everybody is to be contained within the love and affection of their close quarter family without fear. This is the main thing, is not to be put into a state of fear, and to really believe that our leaders, they're really meant to uh, be representing us, yeah, on the
Mhm.
behalf of the billions of people on the world, millions of people in certain parts. They're working on our behalf, so there's something wrong there. So that there are levels of corruption in society which it's very, very difficult to get into and to change them. But if we don't do it and stand up and say, well, everybody has to work harmoniously, then the people who run our countries are meant to be running the countries on our behalf and for us and to keep us safe. And
Mhm.
this is kind of crazy when I say that, because it makes us look like we're in the position of children, you know, because they've got the governing right, but we're the engine of that world. Without us, it doesn't move. So so the only thing I can really say is that if you love honestly and raw, from the very, very raw perspective, if you love honestly your partners, if you love honestly the people who love you, and you speak exactly what you realize, and then truly debate from the level of your heart what's in front of you, to step forward into your future, into your evolutionary process through that openness. That's all we've got. And and for us to survive as a humanity, as a species, is that we've all got to align with this to see, okay, what do we need to do next? Do we need to be breathing bad air? Do we need to drink bad water? Do we need to ravage our seas? Do we need to ravage our rainforests? No, we don't. We've got to actually really look at what we've got and look at how we're surviving and keep it in place and slowly, incrementally change it into something that's beneficial without corruption. That's what needs to happen, and we're at the precipice of either a destruction of our species, or we're on the precipice of realizing that we can turn these are the events of our present moment and our future into something more positive. But we all have to be educated for that. And that goes into another labyrinth, doesn't it? How we're being educated, but really that all that matters is that if I can come home and love my wife and give that security, there's one household that's got I love you. Doesn't matter about my trials and tribulations. I care for you, and then this is all that's important, to bring harmony to our home, not to bring disharmony into our home, so that we can realize we can change the world in this way. And I know it sounds simplistic, but it's the truth.
Mhm.
If we can truly go beyond the obstacles of anything, any conflict with the ones that we've deemed that need to be near us, then the world will change. So then you've got to look at it. Okay, how is all the powers to be got into our home and our households to change this? So we just got to look at our leaders and just ask them to take a breath and do the right thing, because and there's so many souls on our planet that are quite desperate at the moment to want to be within the truth and want to grow within the capacity of their own evolutionary process. No matter where it is, everybody has a right to go through this, and to go through it without being inhibited by our environment. But then again, when you look at our environment, if there's an obstacle, then the obstacle is there to challenge us. So it's a really strange position, isn't it?
Mhm. It's always it's such a paradox.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I this is something that's been on, where I work is it's just constantly in your face. So it's constantly in the news. Not that we watch news, but our other family that has been involved in listening to this, it's just the first thing on everybody's mind, and it's just this level of fear is, it's unprecedented, and like you said, it's we have to bring love home,
yeah,
and let that have faith in that will guide us to the right next step.
yeah,
So try not to get too far ahead, and to be here, to be present, to love. Um, but I can say for myself, my heart does not resonate with the intention behind this push. I trust my body, um, and this is something I want to talk about in a little bit as well. Um, but I'll leave that for the other question. But so I guess just to sum this up, from like I just don't feel right. Like something inside of me is just no, like I just don't feel something is right. So uh, for me, it doesn't feel right. But at the same time, if people do make a decision out of fear, like you said, it's like we can't judge them. We have to allow them to walk that path. They have free will, and eventually, all roads lead home. Um, but I recommend to all my listeners is to always try to sit and quiet your mind, and make decisions out of love,
yeah.
if at all. So.
It's a matter of getting into the framework of your body. First to achieve this, you basically have to realize the agenda, but then not do those people to release them from whatever they're doing. And I know this is a very, very difficult thing,
Mhm.
because when you watch somebody that runs a country, and you know that they're making the wrong decisions, you've got to ask yourself, okay, then why is this occurring? It's a very strange position we're in at the moment.
So
Really, it
strange.
is. But it's also, there's an old saying. It's like, I hope that you were born in interesting times, and this is a curse. It's prominently known as a Chinese curse to be born in interesting times, because the challenge is away uh, from our primal motives of actually truly being a genuine human being. And we've gone so far away from this that there is in essence, we've lost our capacity to see the blessings which surround us, because of the difference that's arising between people. And it's a very good thing in a way, but in another way, we don't see this challenge correctly, then it will corner us.
One final thing on this COVID thing. So if people do inadvertently or whatever they do take the vaccine, is there a way that if there are ill intentions behind it, are they able to neutralize and heal their body from it? Or is the because I guess, with we allow things in our system, it's DNA, it's programming, there's intention. Is it now free to roam, or is there a way to reverse
Yeah,
the
this is
effects?
this is this is a really hard question to answer in terms of our evolutionary process. If somebody catches Lyme disease, it changes their whole internal system, and this was known as a bioweapon. But what I've noticed with people who get Lyme, the sadness, the distraught feelings that their body goes through, it usually quickens their path. But I'm not saying that we need the bad things in our body to quicken our path. It's just that when your path is quickened, you usually only have a certain amount of resources, and to quicken somebody's path really is to take away their resources, and then they only have a certain amount of energy outlay that they've got, and so that they lose a certain capacity. But this very, very thin, narrow hallway which is left allows someone to evolve through the suffering. But I'm not saying we need the suffering, you know, and we certainly don't need to be pushed into something that is going to cause us enormous amounts of illness. And these are difficult subjects because I really don't want to be caught in these feelings for other people, to give people negativity. I do believe that whatever happens, the way is clear. As soon as if somebody makes the decision, then that decision is what will promote their path, and then they follow that path in accordance to what's happened to them. It's so when you say changing our internal system by rearranging our DNA through it's an RNA thing, isn't it? What they call it? It's the RNA that goes into the system and rearranges the
Yeah,
genes and everything like this.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this is kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want that myself, to be
Mm-hmm.
quite honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that in my body. I don't want that challenge. And maybe a lot of people don't want this either. So maybe there'll be a lot of people that say, well, we don't want this. And maybe that will have an impact, because maybe herd immunity is what we're really meant to be subject to in terms of overcoming this. But even if you look at it more deeply, why? What's really going on at the moment over the planet is this is a precursor to war. If you really want to look at it very, very clearly, it's
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, it's looks like a bioweapon. It looks like the precursor to World War III, and it's something slowly creeping up in terms of changing everything from an economic value, uh, and who's going to be in control of that. So, you know,
I just had this
uh,
thought, this exact kind of conversation yesterday with my wife. Exact thought, exact
yeah,
feeling. Thank you, Lujan. I know it's a difficult discussion to have, but I'm sure
yeah,
it's going to be appreciated by people that are listening, to give them some comfort
yeah,
that they're not alone, that we're together in love, and all roads will eventually lead home. And whatever decision that you make, it's the decision that you're meant to make.
yeah. Because quite frankly, you can't tell people what to do.
Mhm.
But in the same breath, it may be those decisions may be based in fear. But
Exactly.
this is a really difficult subject, because there
Hmm.
are people who need to be cared for because of it. But I believe that everybody should go back to work, and the people who are vulnerable should stay at home,
Hmm.
and we should care for them and love them, and not fear for our future, and to such a degree that we're you know isolated. It's not a good thing.
No, it's
Yeah,
not. We're not meant. It's just not meant to be. We're not. We're social creatures.
yeah, that's really true. I
Um,
mean, yeah.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Luhan. So I kind of want to connect this to another thing about some other, you talk about this in your book. I can't remember which one because to me, it's all just amazing information. But you talk about, Wi-Fi and, EMF, even music, 440 hertz versus 432 hertz.
Mhm.
I make music myself.
Yeah,
I choose to make music in 432,
yeah.
and GMO, and all of these things that have, unfortunately, ill intentions behind them, and it's about putting profit ahead of human harmony and human enrichment. So, are there things that we can do to minimize the effects of these things, whether we eat them, whether we are drinking them, whether they are in our environment, to minimize the effect that they're having on our consciousness or our energy field?
Well, you can constantly work on changing your essential vibration inside of your body, but when it comes to frequency, it's invisible. It's like many years ago, when we had normal exhaust from cars, you could actually see it, and then they changed it so it was less detectable. Just to keep going with the technology we've got, instead of changing that particular dilemma, which is still confronting us. Also with Wi-Fi, so we don't need to have detrimental frequencies for carrier waves for information, for communicating with each other. We really don't. It's a matter of just hopefully that in the future they assign the right frequencies that are correct for our bodies. And to answer your question, I mean the only thing we do with Wi-Fi in our household, we've got landline, so that we don't have the infiltration of these particular frequencies in our household. But then, when you look at the computer, you can see that everybody's got full charge around us, so that maybe you've got to get something like a mosquito net that's got silver in it, so that you can not be subject to those particular frequencies while you're sleeping, because they disrupt the endocrine system and everything like this. So there are certain things you can do. And when they first brought out 5G in China, it was actually uh, pregnant women. It was made very obvious if they don't wear the proper underclothing to stop the child from being subject to 5G, which destroys their immune system, destroys their very fragile predisposition. Then there are consequences in China for that. So there's obvious that it does have effects, and everybody's aware of the detrimental effects. But you know. This
So,
is a very difficult subject, because I'm very
mhm,
distressed about this as well, in terms of
mhm.
where are we really going with this, and why aren't really people seeing that there are dangers within microwave frequencies and everything like this, and changing the content of our cells because of that interaction. But then again, there's a kind of the things we're confronted with at the moment.
It's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Um,
So I mean, like for me, we moved out to the country to be kind of away from all these fields and noise, and also, drinking pure water. Like
yeah,
this pipe water, chemically treated water, whether they put fluoride in it or other
yeah,
sort of cleaning material, the water isn't happy. And like you said, the 5G, and I don't use microwaves to change the molecular structure of the food. I choose not to.
yeah.
But we have to make a lot of choices and be responsible for what we're putting, in us and around us.
And people are becoming more aware of this, because everybody's getting sick, and a lot of people can't sleep. They really can't sleep properly now, and there are emotional predispositions which come from that, which causes a certain amount of distress. So we've got to realize that everybody's in the wrong position at the moment. We've got to understand very deeply that even Bluetooth, you know, affects consciousness in the way it makes people a little bit more short-tempered and everything like this. So it's
Mhm.
just a matter of understanding that people being changed too quickly. We're not incrementally going into the future and discovering what this does to our physiology, and then reversing the decisions because it's not right. The powers to be are just bulldozing this, and which is, you know, we need to say, well, okay, what can we do? How can we make this more public, and so people can understand that we need to take a different path.
And I hope this is sort of a good medium to get this truthful information across to people that are ready for it.
Yeah.
So with that said, I mean, I'm a big crystal guy. I love crystals. I've loved crystals since I was a kid, playing with crystals, and I play with crystals as a man. And for me, I find that they have a ton of beneficial effect. Sleeping with shungite, near your room to
Mm.
block with EMF fields or other sort of fields that are coming through. What are your thoughts on crystals, and are they able to help us?
Well, you see I think that's what they're doing in Japan, is that they're dumping a lot of shungite to reverse the nuclear response, which has been blacked out at the moment. So there are obviously many properties which we've got to become aware of in terms of what frequency they produce.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to have shungite around your computer and things like this. So I agree with that too, but I'm not too versed in what crystals do, but I do know inside myself that if I'm around too much Wi-Fi or too much electromagnetic fields, it does have an effect.
Mm.
So then doing the work that I do, it raises my frequency, but you have to be constantly working on this and constantly uh, being in contact with your own potential. Yeah.
So
So this,
working on your energy field and doing
yeah.
your spiritual and physical practice will strengthen your energy field so that you can handle more of this, or at least
Well, there's
not.
only so much that someone's biofield can cope with until it starts to mutate into something which is not meant to be, and this is what causes cancer and everything like this. So um, I wouldn't bathe in water which was poisonous, nor would I drink it. So it still comes down to collective consciousness in terms of getting everyone to realize through education what's really beneficial and what's not beneficial. And there are a lot of people in the world, trying to expose what is good and what's not good for us in terms of our uh, physical representation of what happens to it if it's subject to something it shouldn't be subject to. So that and this comes full circle once again, is that the only thing that really matters is human communication and the truth of what's really going on in front of us and being truly educated. Um, and not going off into subjects which can't be verified. It's like we need people to really stand up, and when they have stood up, um, usually their careers are destroyed. So there's a lot that really needs to be done in terms of our human awareness, in terms of allowing the perpetrators maybe to understand that what's going on um, needs to stop, and that can only happen by people persistently saying, "We need to look at this. We need to look at this." But as you know, that you see when people step forward, they're put into the area of the conspiracy theory, and this is a very um, easy way to discredit people by saying that there's no truth in that, it's a conspiracy theory and everything like that. And there are certain things that are happening with education to actually limit people's comprehension in terms of what's really going on, so that anybody that really has the truth can't really step forward, because the general consensus in society says, well, okay, how can you prove that? It's only because whatever we've come upon that causes us to realize that something's disharmonious that must be made harmonious has been debunked. Instead of the truth shouldn't be debunked. It should be looked at very, very clearly, and then we're meant to adapt to what is incorrect, and then redefine our path through seeing that we need to change our trajectory. So this is being stopped as well. You know, but but to really look at this, we it's a consuming, it's a world of consumption. So we can vote through what we consume and what we buy and what we don't buy. You know, but this is a very, very difficult thing too, because there are so many things that have been selectively given to us to actually buy, and we've got no other choice but to buy those particular things. So we're kind of, it's a very, very interesting labyrinth that we're entering, and then deciding how we're going to remove ourselves from this dilemma that we've got going. So it all depends on our world leaders coming to the truth of what needs to be recognized. But can they really do that?
Having
And
the
if they
courage
do
to
do
do
that,
so.
yeah, and if they are encouraged to do so because of it's morally incorrect, then maybe they can be adjusted through given financial incentive not to be that way,
Mhm.
which is what's really going on in the world. And you know, it's our leaders are meant to be reflection of the viewpoint of everybody who has elected them.
Mhm.
So this also comes down to integrity as well. You know, it's very difficult to change someone's perspective when you're so far removed from them. The only thing that we can really do, come back to the singular thing that we can do, is to live within our truth, within the boundaries of that truth within our household, and then communicate in a way which has got to do with a loving communion, which then looks at everything incrementally from that perspective of caring. And that's that's what's missing in our society. We've got to care, and we need to be seen when we do care. And then if we care in the wrong way in terms of our perspective, then that can be adjusted through intelligent debate. You know, if the and just to it for education. And debate is as intelligent debate has been squished as well. So it's only through you know, honest discourse can we really discover the truth. It's a difficult subject.
It
You
is.
you're really cornering me into difficult subjects.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
it's okay.
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. But when you look at this, this is an obstacle really, and that's the only way you can really look at it, is as an obstacle. What do I do in terms of myself personally, yourself personally? What do? You examine what you become aware of, but what you become aware of becomes your internal destructive reality in terms of, okay, I'm feeling cornered. We've got to learn to stand up and not be cornered, but are we being cornered through our ignorance? And
Mm.
then we struggle to move elsewhere from our ignorance, and do we move into another area of disenfranchisement because we're not really aware of how we're meant to move from what we believe is okay? Because everyone truly believes that maybe um, everybody's got our best interests at heart, but you know, it's been going on for thousands of years in terms of what can you profiteer from someone's life force, and it seems to be that way. But we've got to look at it very, very open-heartedly, and do what we've got to do, and realize what's around us, and then and then and then work with that. You know, because what can we do? What can we do
Yeah, one
if
step
we
at a
have
time,
one step
integrity.
at a time? Yeah, and if everybody's intelligent enough to ask the relevant questions of their circumstance, and then we'll see what's in front of them. You know, and we've got to become unified in terms of our collective questioning, and
Exactly.
being unified is very difficult these days, because what the internet has created is a very, very strong bias, and also it's like road rage. People do things and say things on the internet which are totally not what they would actually do if they were in front of everybody and identified.
Exactly.
So this is a very, very strange position we're in terms of uh, people believe that they can be as mean and as destructive as possible as they can be on the internet, but in reality, if you face them with that, then then they have a self-reviewal. But because we've got this ability to do something, communicate something without any ramifications, and then they can be changed depending on the input. There's no way to track into the lies and manipulation or the meanness that's there. So I don't know whether I'm making sense.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
Totally, you are.
yeah.
Always making sense, truly. And you know what inspires me about you, Luhan, is that you're not just a shaman living in a cave, sitting cross-legged, and you're
That's
living
too,
in.
that's, that's too uncomfortable and cold.
But in a way, well, you wouldn't have to be dealing with what's going on. You could be like, my world is pure and safe, and yeah, it's cold. Maybe I can start a fire, but you're in
Yeah.
it, just with everybody else. And this is what inspires me, and people. You inspire many people for many reasons, but this is a big one for me, that you're in it. You're in it with all of us, and you're inspiring so many of us to that you're doing it. So that shows us that I can do it too, and we
Well,
need that now more than ever.
yeah. If you take somebody out of their reclusive isolation, then they've got to be faced with exactly what's going on in terms of what they need to cope with. I mean, in reality, nobody's immune to what's going on. If you were put into a very isolated situation and very harmonious, I mean, uh, the only things which really can bring your lights to the surface is the challenge. When you look at the Dalai Lama, there was 11 questions for the Dalai Lama, and one of the answers that he gave, he felt like he was a dog that wanted to wrap himself up in the corner and just die. And he was being very, very honest at that particular point. He's a very, very honest and beautiful person. So so through his challenges, he's become more and more real to himself, because he's been disenfranchised. And for him to say that he just felt like he wanted to roll up in the corner, he just felt defeated. I mean, this is truly the truth. To be defeated, and to stand up and still keep within your center by that defeat is a monumental task, and he's taken that on. It's a and that's still, and whatever happened to him is still rolling into the world. Can you believe it? So since he was disenfranchised, this particular agenda is still going, just from his life experience, and now it's coming into everybody's life experience now, in terms of being disenfranchised and put into positions where they don't really belong. You know. So if we really look at it, we're no different to what happened to him. The only difference is that he's got so much love coming towards him, and so many people look to him. And if we really take a really close look at it, we're exactly the same as he is. He's struggling for his Buddhahood. He's struggling for the truth, and for the right of free expression. That's a And he's gone through a very, very hard thing, but he's everybody
Still here.
sees him as precious. And once we understand that the preciousness of this particular individual, um, through the trials and tribulations of his life, we realize that seeing him reveals to us that we're just as precious as well, in terms of what are we going through. And when we look at his life, and the injustices to the system that he was promoting in Tibet, we have exactly the same trials and tribulation. And
That's true.
what it comes down to is that our human communication is all that really matters. Because when anybody wants to be with the Dalai Lama, all they want is love, and love, recognition, and the possibility of those feelings being reciprocated. I mean, this is really all he represents. It's a very, very beautiful thing, and that's all
Simple
he can
and
really
beautiful.
express.
Hmm.
Yeah. So when we look at this, we're all one being when it comes to this um, situation. You know.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Um, and something that connected with me, and when I read your first book was, how you overcame a pretty serious illness,
Mm,
and that's something that I myself went through, and literally took me around the same amount of time to fully heal from it.
mm,
And like when you spoke about, it's when you go through that, it's in a way it's a gift, because it like back then I was like, when you spoke about being the dog and going in the corner and dying, that's what I felt like.
mm.
I kind of just gave up, and because doctors couldn't help me. Nobody
Yeah,
knew what was wrong with me. It was traumatizing, right? It was very fearful.
yeah,
I felt because it's like I became, there was a moment in time where I became enlightened. I was in the moment. You couldn't get me out of the moment, and then I fell
yeah,
hard. I fell
yeah.
hard and as far away from that as you could, and something got into my energy field, whatever it was, absolutely kicked my butt,
Mm,
and I couldn't even, I lost 50 pounds. I couldn't even lift a 20-pound bag. I couldn't walk 100 feet. It was a
yeah,
really sad situation, but I didn't
mm,
want to share it with anybody. I just wanted to be that dog, and go die in the corner, and I tried to, and when I realized it wasn't my time, that's when I took my power back, one step at a time, and literally like 6 7 years later, I'm the strongest and most aware and confident I've ever been. And I
mm,
connected that with you right away. Like I literally had tears coming down my face as you were writing about that, in parallel perception. And that's what brought me to my true purpose as, as an energy healer, and kind of going into this now, and you talking about energy meridians and whatnot. For 3 4 years now, I've felt that, I've discovered a healing gift within me, that, I'm able to, detect energy fields with my hands. Like even, now I'm like, at all times my hands are completely, absolutely vibrating. um, and when I first saw that, it was kind of scary. I'm like, what is this? And but then I started kind of playing with it, and I started, wow, I can feel it, bumps in it, people's energy fields.
mm.
And I was realizing that, I was using my wife as my guinea pig, and her friends, and myself, and and other people, and it was powerful. and
Yeah,
and it and then it got even upgraded to now where I can see energy, and that's where that courage has to come into play, because I'm seeing a lot of the, I don't know, whatever energy I'm seeing, whether dimension it is, but it's there. And it's these gifts that have, of challenges of being sick, that underneath that, is your true purpose, if you allow that to show itself to you. So I'm still on that path, and you know um, so I kind of want to ask you, like, I don't know if you have any insight for me on my path and how I can continue to develop that, or have the courage to go deeper into my purpose. And I use this platform, with my experiences, to share with people that if you are going through an illness, you have power within you to heal yourself. Um, do you have any insight for me,
yeah.
or anybody listening?
Well, even if you don't have the power to heal yourself, you reduce to the only the lines which are available to you, or the you only have a certain amount of energy for your circumstances. So it reduces you because you can't be the person you were previously. That's where the magic happens. So it destroys everything. Illnesses usually destroy everything that's normal, and then um, because you can't reach out beyond the limitations you've got, it only leaves you with all you've got, and it usually reduces everything that's unnecessary, because you only do what you can, and when you do what you can, that's all you can indulge in, and you can't bring anything else with you. It's a great opportunity to become nobody in a very very quick fashion. So it's a so the reduction brings about internal realizations, because you deconstruct yourself through the illness deconstructs you. So it's and
Of who you think
what
you
you
are.
yeah who you yeah you,
Mhm.
totally changes the idea of you.
Mhm.
And the idea of us is the individual idea of oneself has to be reduced, so you escape this self-reflective mechanism and only come upon your path. through your heart, through the tenderness that's available. Because what illness usually does is reduce you to your lowest common denominator, and that lowest common denominator is only expression is maybe grief, and then that expression you realize you've lost everything, and when you realize you've lost everything, then you slowly gain what was unnoticed, because you begin to notice that you can't do the things you did before. Now, the the main thing that I say to everybody in terms of your predisposition, in terms of evolution, is because we're surrounded by human beings, the only way, if you go situational awareness to situational attunement, is that someone brings their awareness to you and they're doing something you don't do anymore. And then attunement is to realize that you don't do that, and you won't indulge in that situational awareness, because that's a block of feeling that you can indulge in if you've got enough energy to indulge in it. But if you haven't got the energy to indulge in it, then your attunement makes you realize that you've stepped away from that particular reality through the illness. So in some ways, illness is very, very beneficial, and in other ways, it's extremely devastating. So it's the challenge. As long as you meet the challenge, which in a lot of ways, if you met by this challenge, you can't escape it. Then that's all you've got. So that you know, as a world community, we're sort of, everybody's kind of what would you say, intellectually impaired, or you could say that reason the reasonable people sound reasonable, but it's not really reasonable. So so when you get to the point where you say, well, I don't do that anymore, then you can see the communication makes sense, but it's not reasonable. Then you've got a certain type of rational insanity which is in the world, but it's also incrementally stepping into illness without knowing that you've stepped into the illness, and it hasn't really taken away all your energy, so that you can still function with that. And that's basically what's going on in the world at the moment. People are functioning with the notion that the reasonableness is reasonable, but it's totally unreasonable, only because there's an emotional disruption, and that's a precursor to illness. And not everybody's realizing that there's a collective illness going on in the world, in terms of not being impaired to such a degree that they can't realize what's going on, because the precursor of their intelligence is to be rational, but the rationality is maybe not is not kosher. It's irrational.
It's
But
almost
you
like
can,
people are used to being, because you're so used to being imbalanced or sick or whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
that you don't know what it's not like.
yeah, that's true. But the good thing for this, for everybody on their path, is that if somebody is triggered into something, then if they do the thing that they're triggered in, then they know that they've got to undo that trigger. And for people who don't do the trigger, they realize that they don't do that anymore. So that's a clear indication that they've stepped over that particular obstacle, um, to come to terms with, well, I'm not going to get angry, I'm not going to get jealous, I'm not going to be envious or anything like this. This doesn't exist anymore. So it's so then by that not existing anymore, then you come upon real truths. You begin to realize
Mhm.
what's really there, and what's really not inside of you because of what's really there. So this is one of the strange positions we all find ourselves in when we don't do something. We discover that the only reason we realize something is because we don't do it, and that's by being nobody. And that's the perspective of not being, instead of doing something which has got nothing to do with not being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when I got stripped down of my complete health, and I was at the door, that I was stripped of my identity, and I had to let go of all what I thought I was, and to
yeah,
come back. And for anybody else out there that's relating to that, there's a purpose there, whatever way it takes you. Um, um, and so when I went through that, and I decided to, really accept responsibility for all of my thoughts and beliefs and emotions. At that point, that's
mm,
where I started to climb the ladder from the depths. And I think
yeah,
with that, you can now, like for me, I feel so much more empathy and compassion for the world around me and those around me that are going through challenges, whether they're physical.
because you realize there's a lack of love in the world
Oh,
because you've suffered.
mm,
Isn't this very interesting?
mm. Makes me kind of
Suffering,
choke up even at this moment.
yeah, because your reduction has made you more open, and then you realize you can be more loving, and then you begin to look at the world and say, oh my gosh,
Mm.
there's a lack of love and understanding in the world, and I find this a lot with my students, is that the reason why they're attracted is because there's no lack of understanding, because it's bare bones honesty and communication. And when you've gone through something and you've been stripped of everything, the only thing that matters is what matters. And what matters is quite contrary to what is being done in the world. So you're in a very beautiful position.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have to give a lot of credit to you because your books are just music, wisdom to my heart, and
Mhm.
to know that I'm not alone on this journey, and there's other way shores. Just even for people that are listening, I know that it just provides a lot of safety and comfort and inspiration to
Yeah.
continue and take those steps one step at a time, and
Yeah.
acting out of love, even when you don't want to,
Yeah.
especially when you don't want to. It's not
You know,
easy.
the Power of Emptiness, and I'm not giving a kick on my book or
It's a beautiful book,
self-advertising.
Ilhan.
Yeah, I know it's a beautiful book. Um, when my students, one of my students particularly, a lovely woman, she said to me, "I don't really understand Whispering to the Dragon. Can you can you please elaborate?" I went, "Oh no." But then I decided to write a book which is a living mantra. So when you go through the book over and over and over again, it reveals yourself to yourself, but also keeps certain principles totally in view as you're doing it. So this book is to release people from the burden of their suffering, even if it's only incremental suffering, which is a big deal. Um, that's
Mhm.
the only thing that really matters is you become awakened to your own biases, and then the book helps to fill in those gaps of what to withdraw from, and how to discover yourself by that withdrawal. So it's yeah, I'm glad you enjoy it.
I'm going
I'm
to
glad
read
you
it
enjoy it.
again and again. I promise you that.
Yeah.
So for people that are that are gonna, even more interested in you now in your books, do you recommend that can they start at the Power of Emptiness, or
Oh
should they
yes,
start?
absolutely. Because uh, you know the general outline of all my books. There's a lot of consistency within them. But really, when I over the years and years of teaching, I've realized that the only thing that really needs to come to the forefront is supportiveness and a feeling of camaraderie through breaking down the barriers of communication. And if you can uh, in invite this into your life and actually not judge someone that doesn't understand you, and then release yourself from this particular burden, then things start to move. And the general premise behind the book is to reduce and reduce and reduce to the point that it allows you to arise as who you're really meant to be. The techniques are very, very simple, but they take a enormous amount of devotion to apply, and that is a challenge. And instead of having obstacles, you've got the challenge of being who you're really meant to be. The obstacles are always going to be there, and the book will give you the ways and means and the tools to reflect upon your life in a way which this book was designed to do, to bring the best out in people, and to give solutions and real world communication through the material that's been written in there. Yeah,
So this can be ready, like this book can
it's already.
be read by anybody from
Oh,
that's looking to get
absolutely.
into spirituality, looking to
Yeah,
heal at whatever level they're at. They
ab-
can.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. I
beautiful.
mean, when you look at if somebody said, "Well, I don't understand," then the first thing that I've got to really look at is what is not really understood. And what's really not understood is that is you from Whisperings of the Dragon to Who Am I to this book, and then the next book is totally focused on returning people to the center of feeling, so they can truly navigate this, because this is all that really needs to be navigated. Because when you really look at it, when you put into crisis, what really happens when you're at the lowest ebb, and the only crisis that brings you to the point of realization, the only reason for crisis, sorry, is that it brings you into, okay, I'm I've lost time, I I need to open up, and I need to live on my path with purpose. And this usually only occurs when people go through crisis, or that they're at the end of their lives. So if we can get people to face the fact that every single moment is a new beginning, they can experience the end result of their life in every single moment. And it doesn't matter what people realize, as long as they realize what they're meant to realize. It's not what other people realize; it's what they're meant to realize. It's right in front of us. And the only way you can come to and I guess I'm repeating myself, the only way to come to that conclusion is to be simply who you're really meant to be. If you sweep a street, it's who you're really meant to be as a person that sweeps the street. If you're meant to be a politician, you be that politician, and you sweep every corner so everything's clean. I mean, this is what we're all meant to do. Our our um, our personal journey is all that really matters. Because why are we here? It's because we want to define our reality through connection, and we evolve through connection. We evolve through the love of that connection. Um, and also having other people having your back, and know that you're loved, and you know that you're cared for. This is all that matters, and that's what the book is primarily designed to do, is to bring you back to your fundamental essence, and it's be simply yourself in every single moment. You don't have to be wise. You just have to be kind and open. And isn't that wisdom? Because if you don't have the words to speak about what you've done, eventually you'll have the words to speak about what has occurred, even though what has occurred doesn't exist anymore. And through repetition, we'll discover it. There's always the same thing in front of us. There's always a person, and there's always the connection to be made, and always the proper feeling to be cultivated. Yeah.
Thank you. Couple more questions for you, Lujan. I know we're
Yep.
getting to the 2 hour mark. Time flies.
Yeah.
I'm in a spaceship here with you. So from my experience, I've this has been kind of like a solo journey, and this is why like someone like you is so inspiring to me, because I didn't really have anybody in my life that said or that kind of inspired me to be to speaking spiritual truth. I've always felt like a philosopher, probably similar to how you were when you were growing up. I just looked at nature and it kind of made sense, and I didn't know why people were so vicious to each other.
I was a little troublemaker.
Were you?
Yeah. I said, what are you doing that for? So it was always against the grain, so, it's
I love it.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I've been it's been a lifelong journey for me to find my tribe, and to let go of what needs letting go, both internally and externally, in relationships and new relationships. And my goodness, that takes a lot of courage. And I think we need that now more than ever, to to have the courage to step forward into our truth, and to live moment by moment, like you said, to be kind
Yeah.
and to be
Yeah.
loving, and the rest,
But
to be simple, the rest will take care of itself.
yeah, but everybody's probably looking at you. They can't look at me because I keep my privacy on interviews. So I do open up to my students when I get to know them, and if we're on meetings like this. But what I can say, because I'm watching you, and unfortunately nobody's watching me. But the thing is, the most notable thing about your presentation is that to come upon what you're saying is that I can see that your eyes are totally looking inside yourself as you're speaking to me. So you're not looking for recognition. You're seeking the revelation of your own feeling to be arising from within. So your listening capacity, your looking capacity is inwardly bound. Uh, that's what makes you completely unique in terms of the suffering you've gone through. But for people to understand how have you got to that position, um, and how do you reverse your eyes? Reverse your eye. The reversory is come upon your internal feeling. Um, if everybody's looking at you, I want everyone to watch the process of where you're looking, because I can see you looking within as you're talking. So if you look
Amazing.
within, you've arrived. So you've
Mm.
come home. So once you come home, then the only thing that really matters is what you really need to do next, and what you really need to express, because you're totally inside. So you're asking everybody to actually do the same thing, and commune with you by being inside instead of talking at you. You talking within yourself. So
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 amazing.
yeah,
I love that you can. I'm always amazed by you, um, by your words. But that's I'm definitely like anchored into my heart, and
yeah,
I that's home to me. That's my anchor. That's what keeps me at
yeah,
peace. And as it happens where I kind of get sometimes of out there, but after about a minute or two, I'm back home and listening to my center and being here and being feeling it. That's amazing that you can see that.
yeah.
Um,
Once your eyes anchor in here, you're watching your heart. All you got to do is listen to the vibration coming from your chest. You'll never leave that center. But what everybody really needs to know is that is when you're like this, you're completely open and vulnerable. And people have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that the only way to evolve is to become vulnerable to, so you can be aware of your trials and tribulations that you need to be faced with. So I'm exactly the same. Is that I'm very vulnerable, very very open, very very sensitive. Uh, there's no in the world I'm going to tell everybody that you'll get to a certain stage where nothing's going to affect you. You'll get to the stage where everything affects you,
mm,
and then you've got to come to terms with that, and you wrestle with it internally to watch the obstacles which make themselves available to you, so you can arise from that situational awareness that's internally bound but externally expressed through language and through your physical predisposition. So that's so in other words, just to create a safe space for people to commune. That's all your body's doing, and that's really all that matters.
so we just as you and I guess me as you said is we allow people to um, be themselves,
Themselves. Yeah,
be true, and
yeah,
that safe space to not be judged and to grow.
yeah. The that's a difficult thing, because people say, well, I want to be myself, but they may be operating from an obstacle, or they want to be themselves and they're operating from being self-aware in terms of observing what's outside, so they can gently speak to what is outside and not inside. Because if you speak to someone that's not inside, they're outside, but you commune with them inside. So this is the progressive element of our humanness, which is coming to the surface through all the diverse circumstances that are coming about. Because the only way we're going to survive this is to enter our internal realizations. And all the other questions that you ask, and all the situations that we're faced with, if we can arrive inside and very very calmly speak the truth of the reality that's affecting us in our very moment, that's all that matters for everybody in their singular moments. And if we can unify in those singular moments and realize that we're all vulnerable and we're all sensitive and need to progress, then this is the way for us to move forward.
Beautiful.
And you know this too. It's because if it's in your vibratory field, if it's in my vibratory field, if it's in your loved one's vibratory field, I know everybody that comes into contact with me, they get addicted to the honest, open, raw communication, and this is all that really matters.
Mm,
And then
refreshing.
love and tears can come from this, through the
Mm,
trials and tribulation of truly opening up.
mm. That's
Yeah,
why I instantly I connect with you even before we met. I don't know if you had felt that, but this feels like a million years in the making.
Yeah,
This has been planned
yeah.
far beyond what it appears to be. Um, I love um, the truth and the wisdom and the heart coming from you, and I'm sure everybody else does, but I especially am so appreciative. I have one last question for you, Luhan, and it's a bit of a selfish one. um, do you have any insights about my path and my purpose? Do you feel or sense anything there?
Well, I've been talking about it. It's basically you're revealing yourself in terms of your inward journey. Um,
Mm,
when you do La Vampire, you first you go looking, you look inside, you look for the feelings within yourself, so you learn to commune with them. You're on your path, obviously,
mm,
and whatever trials and tribulations test who you are, that's what's really meant to occur, and that's for everybody. You've got your obstacles, you've got the freedom of expression, or the detriment of that expression is held in a way which you can't openly communicate.
mm,
And so that's the reason why I wrote the power of emptiness, so that people can navigate this internal world of if I'm within my being and I've got a bias and I've got to let go of that bias, then I I am doing somebody because I've learned through my life experience to know what I'm seeing. There's nothing wrong with that, but then you've got to let go of that particular bias, not do that person, not do yourself. And as you go into you not doing yourself, then you start undoing the world, regardless of whether you like it or not, because you don't add to the connection of the bias to the other person, even though you realize that there's a potential danger or there's a potential disharmony there. But you look within and then give it to love and service, and to understanding, to the people who really matter, and the people that you can't really talk to. You've got to be unbiasedly kind to them, in terms of understanding that they haven't faced their challenges, and they're replicating their inability to face those challenges by asking you to commune with them, and to be part of their illusion, so you don't acquiesce to the illusion. You realize the illusion's there, step away, but be as open, as kind as you can be. Even if you can't alter their path, you alter your understanding of their path, because we add to everything. So we've got to withdraw uh, 98% of ourselves to realize there's 2% of realization, but it's all coming down to the person who realizes what to do with that.
thank you.
Yeah. So I
Brilliant.
think I think yeah, I think you're doing fine.
From you, Luhan, that is a big deal. So I appreciate that, and
Yeah.
I've sort of struggled early on and trying to fit into a world that I was never made to fit in.
Yeah.
I feel I was sent here to kind of shake things up and to show to be a way shower through courage and wisdom and love and presence. And your teachings are a huge inspiration for me and a confirmation for me in this interview is a confirmation for me that it's all coming together. And I can't be more thankful than I am in this moment. Um, truly, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm even getting emotional at this moment.
Yeah. Thank you too. It's everybody who's going to see your expression. This is very important to notice. Humbleness is all that matters, and whatever we can't achieve, we can't achieve. Whatever we can achieve, we can achieve. But as long as we're authentically the person that we realize who we can be at that particular moment, and then move on to another moment, which allows us to realize that we need to adjust.
Bingo.
I mean, isn't that what life's about?
Mhm.
Yeah.
As you stated, not doing and
Yeah.
knowing and not doing, letting go, being water.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. I'm without words, but I want to just again say thank you for your time and your energy. I know you're a busy man, and on your spiritual practice, and I would love to hopefully one day work with you more in depth, and perhaps in Loban Pi, and perhaps have another chat down the line. And
I'm open. I'm absolutely open.
you're just
It's up to you.
Oh, if it's up to me, we'll be talking every day. I don't think you. But definitely, I would love to keep these channels open with you. You definitely are a massive inspiration to me and many other people out there. And I'm just in honor, so blessed that I'm able to have this time with you. So I would love to keep that channel open. And thank you to Ms. Pa as well. Blessings to her uh, and to you. I can't again. I mean, I'm just in awe and so thankful. So for my listeners out there, please look at parallelperception.com. Lujan does group practices and group meetings and also private, doing his teachings of Loban Pi, and also check out his books available on definitely on Amazon. I think everywhere else as well, in paperback.
Yes.
Right. So I usually buy the digital or Audible. Um, there's so much wisdom in these books, and it's something that you have to reread or re-listen to again and again because it's overflowing with wisdom. And when you're ready for that next step in your life, his words are going to be the gateway to look inward into your truth.
You're so lovely.
You're lovely. Come on, seriously. I have nothing but love for you, Lujan. Even before we had this conversation, um, truly a blessing. And I want to thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. And I definitely would love to keep in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm open to that.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed the interview as well. And lots of love to everybody who's listening.